everybody, and welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Alec Brennan, joining back on the show tonight, Mike Wolfgang. Mike, long weekend for you and out on the shows Monday. How's it going?
It's going all right. Not much has changed. A lot of just hanging out and
something has changed, Mike. People are looking at your team a little differently. Those Cowboys down there in Dallas.
I prefer to just keep it in the middle. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm happy, obviously, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
Because all I saw this morning, I was watching some First Take with breakfast, and everyone except Stephen A. on that show was like, hey, this Dallas team might go to the Super Bowl. The expectations are back, so here comes a first-round choke.
Hey, you know what else? The one thing I'll say, though, is it improved last year, but this year, their defense is the reason why they're where they're at. The last couple of years, it's been iffy, but it's looking real good.
It is looking good, and I think it goes to show. We've seen it here in high school a lot. Sometimes a change at quarterback isn't always the worst thing. I know, obviously, you want Dak out there. I mean, he's your superstar, high-profile quarterback.
Yeah.
But the change in quarterback has kind of allowed everybody else to start figuring things out while they wait for Dak. And they don't have to keep focusing everything on him. They can figure out this offense while he's out. And I think we've seen a couple teams here in the Youngstown area kind of have similar change-ups. Liberty is one that comes to mind. They changed their quarterback, get blown out by Brookfield, but the next game he's back in there, and now they've won back-to-back, and they're actually, I think, 18th right now in the polls. So, if you have any team out there right now that is struggling and you're looking for something to change, I know it's not possible for a lot of teams, but Youngstown Liberty, they go 0-4, tied for the worst placed team in Division 5, reaching 17th, to now they're 18th, 2 spots behind the Lakeview Bulldogs, and only one loss really out of the playoffs. So, tying this back into our region, I think it's something to continue to watch out for, especially here in the NFL. I mean, we're getting a lot of change-ups at quarterback, a lot of young guys getting a chance to step up. And this goes to, all the freshmen and sophomores and even juniors that haven't got a lot of playing time this season. When it's your time, be ready, because it's your opportunity to go out there and take care of business when you get that chance. So once that time comes around, take advantage, because you're seeing right now, it doesn't matter what level you're at. If you go out there and perform, people are going to take notice, and you're going to get opportunities down the line.
You just spoke to it. It's being ready. It's quarterback, every position. It goes down to special teams. If you're only on the special teams, and you're back up for that, and that's only reps you're getting, you got to be ready for everything in football.
Yeah, you really do. And, we're seeing it more and more as we're getting later into the high school season, that injuries are building up. Teams are having to look towards other people. And one of the big things about that, they're having to look towards others, and they're performing. It's not just that, they've had to look elsewhere and nothing comes out of it. They're going elsewhere with it, and things are working. And I think it's so interesting to watch as we come down to these final, 3 weeks now of the season, to see what these teams' final adjustments are to go into the playoffs.
Scheme, everything. I mean, it's this point of the year, people are banged up, like you said. That's just normal. If you're not banged up this time of year, there's just something not right. And seriously, I mean, that's it. You're getting beat up every game. At this point of the year, it's been 7 weeks now. So that's going to change. Scheme's going to change. Things are going to tighten up, and we're going to start talking about it.
We are. And Mike, yesterday I recapped the first 16 of these games going across the bottom of our screen right now. I perfectly somehow split it. I went 16 yesterday. We're going to go 16 more today.
Yep.
I had them all pulled up yesterday. I was prepared to do the whole 32 because I was going solo. Somehow perfectly split it. So McDonald Western Reserve was where we last looked at. Now we go into Mineral Ridge and Jackson Milton. I thought this was an interesting game to come into because obviously Ridge had been playing really good. They had the upset loss to Springfield, bounced back against Western, came in against a Jackson Milton team that lost to Lowellville in epic fashion. And then they bounced back against Sebring the next week, 41-0. And then you kind of come into this game, both teams trying to get that momentum started back up for the back half of the season. And I think one thing I'm starting to think about this Jackson Milton squad, they're not bad because this is only their second loss of the season, but you've seen it. When they've played what we consider to be our top teams, they haven't been close. the thing I think about Jackson Milton. They're not great, but they're slightly above average. You look at their schedule so far in the season, you look at the teams they beat, Latonia, well, they're not good. Newton Falls, they seem to play everybody close, but can't ever pull out a win.
Yeah.
LeBray, they're not good this season. They're going to start mowing again, of course. It's just the Tuesday show. It's the Mo show. Western Reserve, not great. Then they play Lowellville, get blown out. They play Sebring, who's not good, and they blow them out. Then they play a good team, and they get blown out again. So it feels this Jackson Milton team, they're not a bad team by any stretch, but they're just average.
They're just doing enough.
And it's not bad to be average, but I just feel there's so much potential behind this team because they have superstars all around. I mean, they have some really great players, but they don't seem to play their best in big games. And that's kind of the one problem I have with Jackson Milton. They're in the playoffs. Likelihood is they're not going to drop. You look at teams behind them, no one else has a winning record behind them, and they're the 13th seed right now for Division 6 Region 21 as computer rankings dropped today. And at the moment, they would take on 4-seeded Dalton right now if playoffs started today. And I think you really have to look this Jackson Milton team, whatever their first round playoff is going to be, I don't think they're going to be favored. You look at what they've done this season. They beat bad teams, and they can't play good against good teams.
Well, I'll keep with the theme the way you open the show with my team. That's kind of how in the pros. That's kind of how it is. You have teams like you just feel like they're good, but they're not next level. They're just doing enough to get by, and that's good. But like you said, if you want to get to where you go in the playoffs, that's just not going to get you very far. It's probably going to get you a first round exit, maybe win a game, but that's just not going to get it done. I feel like that's kind of the theme that you're getting this year with this team. Is kind of trying to sum up what you're saying in a different direction, because I think that's kind of where they're at.
Yeah, and obviously at this point, conference title is out of the picture. They lost to the top two teams. That's fine. We know those teams are really great. But an 8-2 season still in the line for Jackson Milton. I think they can get there. They have Waterloo, Springfield, McDonald left. Springfield's probably the game that questions me the most. But I think they're kind of on par with two of these teams. Waterloo is another team. They've been kind of average, going up and down this season. Springfield started bad. Now they're going good, but it was a really tough schedule. So I think these next two games, we're really going to see what Jackson Milton is made of. And I think coming out of this, I think they're in the last third of the season with a lot of question marks. And you look over on the side of Ridge, question marks are going away for this team. And they went 2 straight. In the one knock you have against them is they got upset by Springfield. Upsets happen. It's the way football goes. They're freak accidents, basically. Everything goes wrong on a certain night. And you practice every week to try and avoid that from happening. Sometimes you just can't. And Ridge didn't. And so a chance of a perfect season gone. Conference title still on the line. And a high seed in the playoff is still on the line. Right now, Mineral Ridge is the 7th spot. At 6-1, they're behind Valley Christian, Canton Central Catholic, Dalton, Cuyahoga Heights, Mogadore, and Kirtland. I don't really see them jumping that much. I think if they beat Lowellville, they might jump Valley Christian. But if Valley Christian beats Southern this week, it really – based on the computer points we have right now, it'd be about an even victory between Ridge beating Lowellville and Valley Christian beating Southern, because both Southern and Lowellville are in that same region, and Lowellville's ranked 3rd, Southern's ranked 5th. So there really isn't a huge difference between what those wins are going to do here. So Ridge, good playoff positioning. They're going to have home field advantage. Everyone's hunting for top 4 now because they want 2 weeks. You want 2 weeks of home field advantage. 1 is fine, but 2 weeks is what you want. And Ridge, they're in a great spot to do it. Even at a 2-loss Ridge team, I think they still have a good shot. Potentially at home field. If you look behind them, the only other 1-loss team behind them, Brookfield, United. Those are the only 1 losses behind them. There's, I think, 3 2 losses in Rootstown, Southeast, and Jackson Milton. Those are the 2 loss teams behind them. So they're looking really good to finish here in the top 8. If you beat Louisville, if you win out, 9-1 record might get them home field advantage. I don't know, though. It's really going to be hard to overcome the likely top 4 that is going to be Kirtland, Mogador, Cuyahoga Heights, and Valley Christian, because I think all those teams are going to be undefeated. Valley Christian is probably the biggest question mark. Cuyahoga Heights, Mogador, and Kirtland probably not question marks there. Valley Christian versus Southern is really going to, I think, decide where Valley Christian ends up for the playoffs. They haven't had a great strength of schedule, but, they're going to get that bump. Mineral Ridge, right now they're hoping Valley Christian goes down. They need Valley Christian to go down. They really need, I think, Canton Central Catholic to take another loss, because Canton Central Catholic is a 4-3 team, and they're in the 5 spot, but they've had such a tough strength of schedule that if Ridge wants to get that bump, they really need that team to go down. And then with Brookfield chasing from behind too, if Brookfield goes out and wins the conference in the MVAC gray tier, they could potentially jump Ridge as well.
Now, I think Ridge has, obviously that game against Louisville is going to be tough, but right now sitting with the 1 loss, I think they have a good chance to finish with 1 loss. But like I said, that's going to be tough. But I think, like you said, upsets happen. I think that Springfield game, they've looked better since then. They had a tough schedule to start. But, you're going to lose a game in football, too, along the way. That's just the way it works. You go perfect, then you're looking pretty good. But that's just not very likely to do all the time. Now, the key for Ridge is not to not have another slip up here, because they played an 0-7 McKinley team this week. And, to finish out with Waterloo, who's 3-4, they're about average, but that's a game you should win. So now that's focus on the one you got to win with Louisville, but you can't overlook this one too. You can't avoid any trap games like we try to say in college, but that's the key, is from not to suffer another bad loss.
Yeah, and I'm hoping they keep it close. I'm really curious about how that Louisville game's going to go. I really want to tune into that one, because I think it's going to be good. Whatever game I'm at, I think I'm going to have that one sitting up on my phone next to me in the booth, like, all right, I got to keep an eye on what's happening over there with Ridge and Louisville, because that's going to be an epic game. I think that's week 9.
For
game of the week this week, though, is Valley Christian versus Southern.
Yeah, for comfort reasons for Ridge, I got that one at home, so that's on their side.
Right. Talking about another team here in the hunt for a playoff. We knew they were going to come out with the win this past weekend, but they did it in good fashion. Salem took down Minerva 48-13. Salem in the updated computer rankings now sits at 9. And you look what they have ahead of them, they have a chance, if they beat Alliance and Carrollton these last 2 weeks, which is winnable for them, that they could find themselves in getting some home field advantage for the first round. You look at kind of this entire region, and it's all 1, 2, and 3 loss teams inside of this top dozen teams. You go Hubbard, Coventry, Streetsboro, Salem, Woodridge, Canton South, Poland, Jefferson, Beaver, Northwest, West Branch, and then Girard at the top of it. And you look at it, there's one loss team in this region. It's West Branch. There's a lot of 2-loss teams. Salem at the moment, if you beat Alliance and Carrollton, I think the Alliance win will go a long way. They just haven't been helped out by the schedule. That's the real big problem when you look at them.
And they have West Branch to close out, too, last week.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't even see that one pop up. Carrollton, Marlington on the schedule. I was looking at the wrong one.
And then West Branch,
Right. So getting that win against Carrollton, getting a win against West Branch, go a long way to getting this team home field advantage. One, if they take down West Branch, they might be able to solidify themselves to home field advantage games in the postseason. That'd be a tight 2. I think they might be more likely to finish out around a 5, even if they can run the table here and pull off what would be a strong finish this season. 5-2 Carrollton and a 1-loss West Branch. You throw Marlington in the mix, who cares? Is Marlington, they're not going to win a game. They're 0-7, that's why I say that. I think Salem's in a good spot. We talk about it all the time. Control your destiny from here on out. You win out, you give yourself the chance to get 2 home games. It's a strong up about them. You look at the teams ahead of them. They have strong strength of schedules when you go the 4-8 teams that they're trying to jump, or the 5-8 teams that they're trying to jump to get up there in that conversation. Poland, they have had a great strength of schedule, and they're now 6th. They're 4-3 in their 6th because of that strength of schedule. Jefferson, they're getting a lot of credit for kind of almost style points, the way they've beaten some people throughout the season. They have a little bit of a strength of schedule. Canton South and Woodridge, the two teams just ahead of Salem, getting benefits of strength of schedule. And that's one thing. Salem, they haven't had it. until now. This is kind of the one spot. It's like, all right, what have you had on the schedule so far? Canton Central Catholic, all right. Padua Franciscan, good. Alliance, good. Three big games out of your 7. Now you have to finish 2 of your last 3 are big games for this Salem team. And I'm interested to see how they take care of business, because really their big games this season, Canton Central, Alliance, they lost. And they almost lost against Padua Franciscan. They're kind of on that verge of what we were talking about earlier with Jackson Milton is, are they good? Or are they really just a little above average? And I think that's one thing they're kind of teetering on the edge of right now. And I think in these final 3 weeks, we're going to figure out this is a team that if they can take home field advantage, I think that we talked about them as an actual contender. But if they drop this and they fall down a little bit and they end up probably around 11, 12, I won't throw a pretender out there, but you just look at them. Yeah, they were average this season.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, with the 2 best teams pretty much on the schedule, they were right there. I mean that Canton Central game, they lose by 4. 11 points by Alliance, it's a little bit wider of a margin, but that's still like, 2-score game. So they're knocking on the door with these types of programs, and with these 2, obviously, that are left on their schedule too, with Carrollton and West Branch. So they're right there. And I think, at this point in the season, when, like you said, control your own destiny time, this is it. I mean, you have to, if you want to get those 2 first-round buys and have some more comfort in the playoffs, like I said, with having to be at home, you just got to do this. It's your last two out of your last 3 in the season to get to where you want to go. It's just big time football, and you got to make your way through it.
Yeah, you do. So I'm trying to mute my mic so there's not a ton of background information, background noise from the lawnmowers coming right up to my window. But our next team thought maybe they could pull something this week in Niles, but they weren't even close. South Range ripped them open 55-0. And I think now you look at Niles, and the road to the playoffs gets very hard from here on out. They're a 2-5 team. Obviously, they can finish 500, but it's a hard road. And from what we've seen so far, they're not going to get it done. They have lost all momentum. Since that loss to Lakeview in week 4, they have lost all momentum. The schedule got tough, and I don't know how exactly how to put this, but it feels like they lost their edge. Yeah. When they lost that 1-score game to Lakeview, then it became a 2-score game to Jefferson. Then it was a 3-4-score game to Poland. And now you come back and it's an 8-score game to South Range. This is a week against Struthers. I think they can bounce back a little bit. I don't think they're going to beat Struthers, because I think Struthers is an above average 3-4 team. And I think Niles kind of teeters on that edge of they can be good, but they just aren't playing up to their potential. And you look at Struthers, Hubbard, Girard left on the schedule. The unfortunate fact is for Niles, they are likely not going to make the playoffs this season. And
look at that after their last win against Independence. Look at that schedule. You even ran through the ones they lost with Lakeview, Jefferson, Poland, and South Range. It keeps getting harder for them if they want to finish 500. It's going to be very hard, like you said, with Struthers, Hubbard, and Girard. So it's been tough to this point. It's going to be tough to finish out too, and I think that's what's kind of been the Achilles heel of Niles this year, is that they've had a really hard schedule and they haven't found a way to navigate through it.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the props that we've given to Struthers on the other side of that is they've taken, same with Poland, they've taken a hard schedule and they have played phenomenally inside of it.
They've done better with it.
Right. And I think that's one thing we have to watch out in the postseason. We've seen teams struggle out of conference, play really well in conference. Poland and Struthers, I think, kind of the big examples of that, mainly Poland, because they have, one in-conference loss, and it was the South Range, but they've lost twice out of conference. How are those teams going to fare when they bounce in the postseason and they play against teams they're unfamiliar with? I think that's one thing we have to watch, but got to give some love right now. This NE8 conference is amazing this year.
Very entertaining.
I mean, everybody has a shot to win every week. I think Niles is kind of the first team that we've seen kind of slip off the edge, but Cortland's still in the playoff conversation. Jefferson, Hubbard, Struthers, Girard, South Range, and Poland, I think pretty much all have a spot nearly locked up if they can. Outside of Struthers, they're going to need a strong finish to the year, but everybody else there, they have their playoff spot pretty much solidified. I think at least with one more win for most of them, they will be, virtually guaranteed in that playoff. South Range has won that. On the other side of this matchup, they continue to win. They are the 1 seed right now for Region 17, and they will be taking on Lakeview in conference opponent. to start out the postseason, that's exactly what you want, right? You go in there against somebody you're familiar with, who they're going to see in week 9 as well. So obviously that's going to change up. But you look around, who else would they potentially play? Well, there's Champion, Harrison Central, Crestwood, Youngstown's Liberty, Orville. There's a couple teams, but none of them are going to stand a chance against this South Range team. They've really set themselves up well. And now you look at these last 3 weeks, Mike, and I know one of their wins came against your Girard squad, but they're playing freaking amazing, averaging over 50 points a game, allowing 4. South Range is playing really good football. This might be a better South Range team than last year, and that's saying something with the amount of talent they had on last year's squad.
And Alec, like I said, even in that Girard game when they won pretty handily, it's their depth too, and that's what separates a lot of teams, especially like you said, this conference is good, but I think you pretty much know it's South Range and maybe some other teams at the top, but it's South Range, and I think it has shown that the whole year this year. They haven't really had any struggles going up against too many teams. If at all.
And I think one thing, you look at this Region 17, and I think you kind of go down the list and go, all right, who's going to compete with South Range? You look 16 through 8, the road team, starting Garfield. Garfield, because of their wing T-style offense, might have a shot just because you have to be really disciplined on defense, and South Range hasn't really had to face anything like that. And that would probably be the only real test out of it, but Conneaut, Triway, Mooney, I don't see it there. Berkshire, Smithville, Harrison Central, Champion, or Lakeview, I don't see them touching this South Range team. So you look at this top 7 teams, starting with West Lafayette's Ridgewood, they're 6-1. I don't see it. You got Fairless, they're 5-2. No way. Norwayne, Perry, and Garway. Maybe those I would say Norwayne, Perry, and Garway could give South Range a shot. But when you talk about that depth, I think the depth is just really heavy in the favor of this South Range team. And I don't think you're going to find that in many schools around the region. And the one team I've left out there is the Edison Wildcats. And they're kind of the wild card in this whole top 4 of Region 17, right? Because nobody really sees them. They play this independent schedule, and they've played it really well. But then you look at it and you go, all right, reality, who have they beaten? Harrison Central, number 14 in this region. Then they beat Toronto. Great team to beat. Great win for them. That's an 8 seed for Division 7, Region 25. They haven't played anybody on the level of South Range. And that's the one thing that worries me. Their strength of schedule has not been good. And when you're going to go into what we're looking at, a very strong top 4 in this region, a team like Edison, I think, is going to struggle. So I don't think I would give them that shot against South Range. So you really look at it. South Range, the far away favorite, I think, to kind of run out of this division here in this region and give themselves a great shot to play in early November football.
Alec, you heard me bring up their depth the last couple of times we talked about them. And that there's a difference between having depth with just talented guys, but there's a difference between that and actually giving them experience. Whereas when you go into the playoffs, injuries are bound to happen. It's just part of sports. Sometimes you can get away with it, but it's bound to happen at some point if it hasn't to this point of the year. And having guys with experience over just talent, that's the difference. I think that's what South Range has. They're able to get these guys in and get experience every week they play. So that one right there makes them a huge favorite.
Yeah, I agree there. Next game up for us, Rootstown. The Rovers got dropped big time. JFK with the statement victory over Rootstown after getting upset by Mogador the week prior. Or I guess I won't say it's an upset. Mogador is a 2 seed up there in Division 6. So JFK, though, holding on to that one spot. They went out there, I think, on a mission, kind of going, all right, Mogador right now the 2 seed in that Region 21. Sure, they got us by 2 touchdowns. Now they go up against who is now the 9 seed in Rootstown in the same region and drop them handedly like this. I think it was a real kind of, all right, we see your move, here's ours. A blow for blow. All right, Region 21 took one from us. Now we're going to take one back. And they really make this Region 25 look so good because it is a really strong top 5 teams when you go Southern, St. Paul, Lowellville, Danville, and JFK. that's a really great top 5 teams there. And I think you kind of look around at the rest of Division 7, and I think part of you really goes, all right, who's going to touch Region 25? Winner of Region 25, in my mind, from kind of what we're seeing, is likely going to win the state championship or is going to be favored to win the state championship. And if that's JFK, if that's Lowellville, Southern, that's great. Springfield, what if they make a run, man? They 3 straight wins now.
About it.
Right. I mean, if they go 7-3, finish this out, they could be up there in that top 5, top 6 conversation time to start opening that door. But this right here, a statement win for JFK. Maybe their real last chance to get a statement. They do have Southeast Ravenna coming up, which is a game I think that, should draw a little bit of attention back to them again. Southeast Ravenna currently sitting as an 11 seed in that Region 21, so just behind Rootstown, who they just decimated this past week. So I think it's a real great chance there again to take another knock, playing up a division for this JFK team. They made the playoffs in week 3. They guaranteed themselves a spot on computer points alone because of their wins against Champion Delta and Garfield and then Perkins. And you've seen here in the last half of the season, they could have let off the gas. They could have let this whole thing slip. Instead, they have it. They have put the pedal down. They have Aquinas this week, who is going to be begging for mercy here at halftime against JFK. Then the week after, they have Cleveland Central Catholic, who I'm looking up to see is an 0-7 team in Division 4. Yeah, this season's going to go 9-1 for JFK. I don't think Southeast is going to give them a shot. I don't think that they're going to take it from JFK. They're just playing too good. And I think there's one team maybe even in this region that is going to challenge JFK, and I think it's Lowellville. I really do. I mean, I know there's some good teams here, especially in Danville and St. Paul and Southern. I don't think any of them stand a chance against JFK. I think Lowellville does because they are so explosive. They're going to force JFK to run the score up. And we saw it when they had to go, touchdown for touchdown against strong defense in Mogador. That's where they fell short. Lowellville has tough defense and a really great offense. And I think that's the matchup I think everyone it should be hoping for, unless obviously you have a team that you're rooting for in this region. But that's the matchup for Division 7, Region 25. You want your regional championship game is Lowellville and JFK. Those two, that needs to decide it, because I think they're the 2 best teams in Division 7 football this year, and probably the 2 most talented teams as well.
Well, I mean, yeah, for us, we're definitely rooting for that. But I think, that's how Lowellville is going to try to beat you. And because we're talking about Lowellville and JFK, that's how they're going to make you. They're going to try to make you keep up with them offensively. If you could do it, good. If you can't, then they're just going to keep winning. So,
right. And Mike, this is a great transitional point. Lowellville's actually the next team we're talking about, anyways.
I'll cut it that then, because there's not much. I'm just going to say JFK they have some good statement wins. So they've done a great job this year.
They do, and especially when you go into this postseason, who else has as much experience in big games as they do? Nobody.
You talk about a win at Garfield too. I know it's by a point, but you walk in there and get a win. That's pretty good.
I think they're one of the only teams that have gone into Garfield and came out with a win.
Yeah.
Since Garfield joined the MVAC and YSN, I'm not sure how many times they've lost at home.
Yeah.
That might have been the first loss at home for them. I'd have to go back and check their schedules, but I don't think it's happened too many times. That was very impressive. It's become one of the hardest places to go into and play well in. They just dominate you in front of that crowd out there. But, you talk about Lowellville, and obviously they are so good, so talented. The one knock that can still be thrown against them is, who have you beaten? Look at their schedule. Nobody. Jackson Milton is their best win, and we've already talked about the doubts of Jackson Milton and the fact that they're probably an average team. So your best win is above an average team. Granted, you won 62-20. They're enforcing their will on other people, but if they have to go up against a team like JFK, they haven't faced that level of competition. Now, the postseason is going to give them some of that. They're going to get some, and I think that makes it real fun, because you look at this Division 7, Region 25, number 16 team is Wellsville. Then you got Steubenville's Catholic Central, not the good one that we have seen go undefeated. Buckeye Central, Cotton Valley, South Central, Lisbon, Lucas, and Springfield is that away teams at the moment here to start out the postseason. Louisville, they'd be going up against, I believe, Lucas in the first round, but also kind of teetering around Springfield, who they've already played, in Lisbon, a team that doesn't stand a chance against them. I think they're going to get some experience in that postseason, but if depending on how this bracket plays out with Louisville and JFK, if Louisville has to go up against JFK before they see the likes of Southern or St. Paul or Danville, I don't think it goes well for them. I think if they end up seeing one of those teams, however, one of those other top threes before they would see JFK, I think that's kind of the turning point that would give Louisville a shot against a team like Warren JFK, who has so much experience playing divisions higher than Louisville's even thought of this season.
That's why I was just going to say, I think going back to what I was saying previously is I think, they're going to try to make you beat them with their offense. But I think when you're playing a schedule like they have this year and you're going to playoff with a team where, say, against a team like JFK, that you might struggle a little bit because you haven't played that level of competition. You're just used to putting the end zone in the ball how many times a game, or the ball in the end zone how many times a game. And like you said, their best games, Springfield, Jackson, Milton, those might actually be their two best. Camel at the top of the schedule, we know how bad they are. So I think that's the one knock against Louisville is their strength of schedule, but their offense is pretty lethal. So we'll have to see how that plays. But I think if they go up against a team like JFK, I think it's advantage JFK.
I think the one kind of test we're going to see for Louisville is that Week 9 matchup against the Ridge.
Yeah.
When they go up against Ridge Week 9, we're going to see if they're, contenders or pretenders. I think that's the real test. Obviously, this is a team in Louisville. They have had great regular seasons, all to fall apart in the postseason. That's how it's gone. First, second round exits for a really talented Rockets team. They have consistently fallen apart. Mike, they're like the Cowboys. Great team, great regular season team. Get to the postseason, nothing goes their way. Yep. I think that Mineral Ridge game is the real test for them. Maybe a preview of what you'll see kind of against JFK. I think there's some similar physicality that Ridge brings that JFK also kind of brings that I think is going to test Louisville that first time in the physicality department. So I think that's the one to watch out for. This week, though, watching with Niles, they go up against Ridge. Now we see Louisville won against the Sebring team 41-8. I want to see what Ridge does against Sebring this week to see kind of what that comparison is going to be right after one another. I think that's the real test to go in this week, kind of to judge going forward on what that matchup in Week 9 potentially looks like between Louisville and Ridge.
Yeah, I think that's their toughest one left because, this week going against the McDonald team, they probably should run over. So, yeah, that should, but again, we don't know. We just talked
McDonald's
about
a 24 team right now in Region 25, so
yeah,
big gap there. Likelihood is McDonald already out of the playoff conversation.
Oh yeah. So we're looking at that Ridge one for Week 9.
Yeah, but same thing there. If McDonald goes on a tear here, wins their final 3 games of the season, not only are they going to get upsets, they're going to get points because if you take down Louisville, let me pull their schedule back up because I just put it down, of course.
I just had it somewhere.
But, you look at their schedule. All right, Louisville, that's a playoff team right now. You're going to get a lot of points for taking down the number 3 seed. You have Waterloo, who, let me pull up where they are currently. Waterloo is a 20 seed in Division 6. So they're going to get points for going up a division. Then you have Jackson Milton, a playoff team in their region. Those are some huge wins. If McDonald pulls this off to finish off the year, they could potentially sneak in there around 16th-ish at that last half of the playoffs. Now, I don't think they're going to be favored in any matchup in the postseason, but a 5-5 schedule with what they have left could potentially get them on there.
Yeah, find a way to get in, man.
That's all you got to do. United this past week took down the Bulldogs 42-6. It's an unfortunate drop for East Palestine. I like it maybe this week, though, against Columbiana. I think that's their last winnable game on the schedule. They have Southern and VC after this, so if they don't win here, it's a 1-9 season for East Palestine. I think a lot of fans are hoping, all right, we got one this year. Last time they had 2 wins in a season, back in 2018, they went 5-5. It's been a while. They want number 2. And because at the moment, man, if they don't get win number 2, it's going to be a number 2 season for them, and that's not what they want. So, East Palestine, you hope they can bounce back, but the real story here continues to be United. And where is this team going to fall into the postseason? Because Conference title gets decided this weekend. It really gets decided this weekend between Southern and Valley Christian, because Valley Christian beats Southern, no chance for United to take that crown. If Southern beats Valley Christian, well, then it opens up a whole new can of worms. We look at Week 10 United versus Southern. And that game played in Southern, just like this one will be this weekend. And United, they're going to beat Wellsville. They're going to beat Lisbon. But at the moment, they are a 10 spot. If Valley Christian goes down and then they can beat Southern, they might have a chance to jump. You win the conference, you go 9-1. You probably look at a good shot to get up there for a home team. I don't know if you'll get 2 straight home games, but I think you'd get 1. So United, their cards are in the hands of other people. They didn't control their destiny. They dropped the game to Valley Christian. They still have a chance, though, for a piece of the EOAC crown. How fitting would it be if the EOAC gets split 3 ways this season? With how tight it's been between the top 3 teams, if it becomes a 3-way split record-wise. I don't know what their tiebreakers for that would be, if there would be, or if they just,
Isn't that what we want, though?
What's that?
Isn't that what we want?
A 3-way split for it?
Yeah, I want to see it.
No, I want Valley Christian taking it this weekend.
Well, I know. But I'm just, yeah.
Oh, come on. Those boys at Valley deserve it, man. They have been just such hard workers this season and last season. I mean, you talk about maybe one of the biggest program turnarounds in, the Youngstown region. You go back, 2019, they're 2-8. 2020, they're 2-6. And they bring in Mr. Andy Hank. They go 6-3. Now they go potentially 10-0, undefeated, conference champions, a top 5 seed in the postseason, 2 home games potentially at John Napick. Oh, come on. It's writing itself. This Andy Hake always says, oh, come on, let's get a camera crew down here on the field. Let's sell this story to Netflix. That would be the storyline they would take if they could get this pulled off. But it becomes very interesting. And United, they're kind of in a wait-and-see moment, right? Because they're going to win against Wellsville. We've seen it. The top 3 of the EOAC just absolutely flatlined the rest of the conference. The top 3 is that much farther ahead than everybody else. So I'm not worried about United in these next 2. Week 10, though, Southern United becomes a big one, especially if Southern wants that top spot in the playoff, because they're still on the outside looking in for Division 7 Region 25. They're a 5 seed. They want back-to-back home games, and it's in reach. Now, a drop to Valley Christian might push them down. It might not. They're right in front of Hillsdale, who's a 3-loss team, and then they're in front of Matthews, who's a 1-loss team. A loss this week to a Division 6 contender might not hurt them that bad playoff-wise, but a second loss to United will hurt them. So that Week 10 becomes very interesting for playoff positioning for all these teams. They're all in. They're all going to make the postseason. The question becomes, where are they going to fall within the postseason? And I think that's what you really have to watch out for with these couple of teams. Southern United, Week 10 is going to be huge for playoff implications. This week does as well for Valley Christian and Southern. If Valley Christian wins, likelihood is they can seal up a top 4 spot in the postseason. It's going to be tight. It's going to be a tight finish for them because, they're a 6th spot. I think they might have dropped despite winning because they don't have the strength of schedule. This would solidify their strength of schedule, getting a win over Southern. You win your 2 best games, undefeated. Likelihood is an undefeated season, you're getting a top 4 spot. Likely. Points are weird, obviously, and they could really benefit if some teams behind them won this weekend. If McDonald pulls the upset, great. If McDonald wins those last 3 games and goes 5-5, goes great for Valley Christian. If Campbell pulls a win somewhere, which I don't think they will, looks great. United becomes a 1-loss team and they beat Southern, who even drops to a 2-loss. That looks good. If Lisbon can start getting some wins, that looks good for them. Those computer rankings, they're real fidgety. It gives themselves, they control their cards. If they went out, if any of these teams went out, they control where they end up in this postseason.
Moral of the game is these games are important. Or the story is these games are important. So I think
that's the summary. We are in the most important games of the season.
Yeah.
Conference titles, and playoff positioning. You have to set up yourself well. And maybe the second most important or third most important thing behind it, can you do this all while staying healthy?
Yeah.
This is where we see injuries tank you.
Goes back to what I was saying about depth.
Right. That's why we look at South Range like, all right, no one's going to touch them. They have a great spot because we know if they have somebody go down, there's somebody right behind them. Valley Christian, question marks arise. Same with United. I think if United has any big injury to one of their top players, I don't think they go very far in the postseason. I don't think they have depth. They're really great starters. They're main guys, and they will play great. Once you have to go digging into the younger members, I think that's where the problems arise. Valley Christian, I might feel a little better about injuries there because they have so much depth across the board that a knock in one spot I don't think hurts them because they have two guys that play or three guys on that offense that can throw the football between Pete, Mixon, and Gurley, who have all taken snaps at quarterback this year. Mixon got the start a week ago against Columbiana. He took the first snap of the game, didn't throw. But, injuries to this point could be huge and could cost, these teams a big shot at the postseason. Not to mention, you don't want to see these athletes get injured at all. You want to see them, have the best shot to live out their dreams in these scenarios. So, Valley Christian was the next team that was on our list. Columbiana after that. Columbiana falls 0-7. They got East Palestine this week. They got Letonia and Lisbon. Maybe they can win one of these three. If they're going to win one, it's coming here. I don't think they merely had a shot the rest of their schedule. If they're going to win one, it comes in this next three. I think it's simple as that. Postseason out of the picture. Warren G. Harding did unfortunately beat Boardman this last week, about as close as it can be. And Boardman, now they're the 16th spot after this week. If they just continue to win, they're going to be just fine. But they have Dover, Fitch, and Canfield. Likelihood is this loss really kills the Spartan shot at the postseason against Warren G. Harding, who came in a very, very tough 2-5 school.
Yeah,
who sits at 17th right behind Boardman, the team they just beat.
Yeah, and Harding's the team I was talking about earlier in the year. They just weren't – they were struggling a little bit. But it was a hard schedule they were going through, and I think they got a good one over Boardman. Like you said, probably put some out, but I think it's still going to get a little bit hard for them coming down the stretch here with Mooney and Cheney and Fitch. So that's really tough to finish out. So I think Harding's a solid 2-5 team for what the record shows, but I think they're better than that. But it's going to be they're going to have to find a way to get through this part two of the schedule.
Most definitely, and after what we saw against Warren G. Harding in the close games they've played this season, granted, it's been a tough schedule, and they won the games they were supposed to. You look at the rest of it, I don't have a ton of confidence in what Boardman's going to be able to do because that path ahead is so rocky to finish out. Our next team, West Branch, postseason's theirs, playoff positioning is kind of the one thing left. Alliance, Carrollton, Salem, 3 wins here, they probably can jump Girard. That's the one team that stands in front of them. And you look at their schedule right now, some really good teams coming up. They've had a fairly easy schedule, though, outside of Canfield. Not a lot of big games that you look at and go, all right, that helps them with computer points. But Alliance, Carrollton, Salem, these last 3 weeks are going to give you that. Control it. You win it. Probably can jump Girard.
Yeah, you haven't got a whole lot of these opportunities the whole year, like you touched on. So these three, again, we know you're in the playoffs, but you always want to feel good about yourself going in. And I think getting through this last half or less than half, these final 3 of their schedule, that's going to give you some confidence. Like you said, points-wise, it's going to move them up a little bit, but you want to be playing your best against some good teams going into the playoffs so you're better prepared.
Next team for us, Orange, tied for last place. They drop it 38-7. They're tied for last in Division 6, Region 13. Schedule doesn't line up. They got Perry, Lakeside, Kirtland next 3 games. Fortunately, the Orange are going to drop to 0-10 and have a winless season, which is real unfortunate. You never want to see it happen. But now you look at it, if that's the way this season finishes out, unless they pull a miracle upset, they would have 1 win throughout the last 3 seasons. And you really got to start questioning, what are they going to do to turn it around? Playing in this conference especially. You look at the conference they're in, they're playing against Kirtland, Perry, Geneva, Lakeside, Edgewood, Chagrin Falls, and West Geauga every year.
Yep.
Yeah, it's no wonder they have won a single game in the last 3 seasons. That is the most brutal conference, maybe outside of the NE8. And I think NE8 and the Chagrin Valley probably neck and neck on this side of the state for best conference around.
And I think when you're going through rough patches like that, like where do you even turn to? Like, what are the answers? What? Obviously, any type of move you make, it's an improvement because obviously what you have is not working. But it's just, what do you do?
Here's what you do: go to a different conference.
Well, that too. But I mean, but that's
going to take this one.
But sometimes that's easier said than done. I mean, we don't always know what goes into that. But it's just on what it is now, like what one win in 3 years, it could be that way. It's looking that way to finish out. What do you do?
Even if they start becoming good, you can guarantee losses to Kirtland and Perry pretty much every season. Yeah. So best you're going to finish a good season is probably 8-2. Well, Geneva and Lakeside Edgewood, they'd probably all give you a run. Chagrin Falls most years is a pretty darn good team. There's a lot of money in that program. And you know what money does for high school football? It makes you real good for a while, and it leaves you good as well. So Orange at the moment, I mean, it's just about getting the right players at the right time. And I mean, every high school coach tells you that. It's not often you get every position perfect at the right time
when you want it.
When you win.
Yep.
And, that's what, you talk to Lowville coach, Valley Christian, Brookfield, our top teams, they'll tell you, hey, it's not every year. Teams like us get everything going in the right year, especially when you look Division 6, Division 7. When you go up a little bit higher, D5, D4, D3, D2, D1, especially up there in the higher ones, they're going to have great players every season. That's just, there's so many people at the school, you're bound to get great athletes. It doesn't line up like this for every other team. And you look at a team like Orange, yeah, they're here in Division 4, but they're one of probably the bottom Division 4 teams, much like Youngstown East. East has a lot of people, but, that's just they're not a sports school. And you look at Orange and it's like, you don't want to see a football program go away, but you almost have to look at it and go, all right, I mean, who is this good for? And I think that's one of the unfortunate sides of this is what's the benefit of sending this team out here to get dominated every week
against those teams?
To turn this program around, I think it would take a lot. Last winning season was 2018, so they're not that far removed. But that year, they didn't play Kirtland. The real change up is you go from a conference schedule to something more like what we see out of Canfield and Fitch. You play a couple conference games, but then you're playing more of an independent schedule. I think that's probably the best change for Orange moving forward, is to become more of an independent Chagrin Valley conference team, like we see some of our teams here in the Valley do, especially our big ones that are trying to make big impressions. You have to go out there, and even if you are scheduling D7, D6, D5 schools, it's wins. It's wins that you weren't getting before. So I think that's the one change I could see coming for Orange future, is potentially a little bit more of an independent schedule, because they're not going to win this conference. It's not going to happen without a really great squad all coming together at once. Because you look at Kirtland, they are the definition of consistent, and Perry's right behind them.
Well, I think in the case with Orange, sometimes you got to even just throw winning the conference out the window. Right. At the point they're at, you got to start focus on winning a couple games and then building on that, because very rarely do we see a team that's bad in a conference that strong or top heavy just come out and just start playing better. It's an exception. The one thing that comes to my mind in college is probably Kentucky. Mark Stoops going down there and building them up. Other than that, it doesn't happen really at any level. So maybe independent scheduling, help yourself out, or just try to win. I mean, I know it's easier said than done, but that's what you got to do. That's sports. You got to win.
Yeah, I really think once they can get some scheduling next year, try and grab a team like East Palestine or Sebring, Columbiana. Get one of those on your schedule. Get one of those teams that we have seen a lot of struggles this year, just like they have. And even if you don't come out with the win, at least you're probably in a competitive game, which you obviously haven't been in a while. And that's kind of the one thing you look forward moving forward. Cheney, though, coming out with a big win. A team, how about this turnaround for him? Struggles last year, injuries took him down, but now here they are competing for a state title, basically. They took down Harvey this past week, 33-14. They are looking good as the season moves forward. They are the 3 spot for Region 9, Division 3. And you look, Howland, Warren G. Harding, Youngstown East, right it up 9-1 season for the Cheney Cowboys.
Yeah, and they're another team that some other teams we talked about on the show today. They're a team with an explosive offense too.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say explosive, but they can score. They have athletes that can score points, and they defend pretty well.
Great defense.
They defend pretty well, so that matters coming down the playoffs. What do they say? I like to win you championships.
Defense.
Yep.
Kickers win you championships.
That wins you last second games.
Which most championship games are at this level.
Also, when it's last second games, that's more defense too. So,
I'm taking my kicker, and I'm going to go win some games. Mohawk pulls off the win, 32-13. Now back-to-back for them. They have a tough one coming up this week though against Beaver Falls. They're a 5-1 team. Mohawk, they're pushing back to the right direction. You just wonder, are they going to have enough to go up against good schools? We see them take down 2 bad ones in Brighton and Lincoln the last 2 weeks. Moving forward, though, Howland, they take down Youngstown East in the greatest offensive showdown to have ever graced the Youngstown and YSN networks, as Howland came out with a shocking offensive juggernaut performance. They win it 3-0.
Are you sure it wasn't baseball?
Kickers.
Are you sure this wasn't a baseball game?
I have to go double check. Maybe this was a volleyball set. They just won in 3 sets. That's the real question. But how about this? 4th quarter field goal. What did I tell you? Kickers win you football games. There we go. I got my example. Good night. That's all we got to say about this one. I don't think either team's making the playoffs at this point. So skip on past it. Southern, they cruised over Leetonia. We've already kind of touched on them here today. Valley Christian this weekend is the game to watch. Leetonia, they're not going anywhere this season, and they're in a rebuild phase. We'll see what they can do. Springfield comes off another impressive win, and they're kind of in the process of turning things up a notch. When you look at where they sit inside of Region 25, Division 7, this region we keep going back to, a lot of teams on YSN we look at, they have gone from an 0-4 team tied for 25th to the 9 seed. That shows you how much shuffling I think we're going to see in these last few weeks. Western Reserve's at 17, Wellsville 16, Lisbon is an 11 seed. There's a lot of shuffling I think we're going to see in these last couple of weeks. And there's a chance, not a good one, not a high one, but I think there's a potential that if you see a team like Leetonia or Sebring, somehow, some way, some miracle shines down onto the field, and we see an Angels in the outfield situation, Angels in the end zone. These teams potentially, if they can win out, make the playoffs. But Springfield, they've put themselves in a good spot. I can't wait to see what they do against Western Reserve and Jackson Milton these next 2 weeks. I really think it's going to be a test of, all right, you won the upset. You managed the expectations against McDonald and Waterloo. Now let's finish, because we've seen this team in years past make big runs to finish out the year and play really great. And I want to see it happen again.
We know they're capable.
Right. And a team that's capable right now of pulling the upset, Waterloo. They do lose that game to Springfield, but now they go into Jackson Milton. They have McDonald after that in the Ridge. Waterloo's a team, outside looking in. They're a 20 spot. And this bracket, let's see, where's the opening at? 12 and under, 12 to 16, I think still open. And a win against Jackson Milton, one of those teams, not 12 through 16, might be able to kind of flip their spot up and push them up in these rankings to take a spot maybe against Chippewa, Brooklyn, Pie Valley. One of those teams we could potentially see them jump over, depending on how they play here in the last couple of weeks. But I'm interested to see what they can do, kind of on the lines of what we were talking about with Jackson Milton, right? Won the games they were supposed to, lost the games they weren't. Average. They're an average team. Yep. And it's kind of what you're seeing. We got average on average. Who's the better of the average? You're going to get that one of those last playoff spots. Jackson Milton might kind of already have one solidified, but their strength of schedule is really hurting them. Win 6, win 7, I think probably bumps them in here. So I think Jackson Milton's going to be hunting for that playoff spot this week. I'm interested to see if Waterloo can pull it. It's a home game for them. Next game here is we're trying to go through these ones quickly here, Mike. I'll give you a second. What do you?
No, I was going to say that matters. That's what I look for. Is where a lot of the games, a lot of times where it's at is where it matters.
Yeah. Our final game, we're down to our final 4 minutes of the show. Wyndham and Pie Valley. was not close. Pymatuning Valley, now winners of 3 straight after they dropped to Ridge, Middlefield, Cardinal, Grand Valley, and Rootstown. They come out, shut out St. John, win 38-12 against Fairport Harder, and now 60-12 against Wyndham. Where did they come from, and how are they doing this? Because now they're a 14 seed coming out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, you talk about the turnaround that we expected out of it, that we were seeing out of Springfield, and they're getting a lot of credit for. Pymatuning Valley should be getting some love here too. And these final 3 weeks, they can go from a team that's sitting at 14th. I don't think they have a shot for home field advantage, but they're going to make round 1 a lot easier than going up against at the moment would be Cuyahoga Heights, potentially Mogador, Kirtland, or Dalton. If they can bump themselves up to a 10 seed, take on Ridge, I still don't like it for them. I think that top 8 is pretty solid, but you give themselves a better shot, and they have Conneaut 5-2, Toronto is I think a 2-loss team, and Matthews, who are all very good teams to finish out the year. You finish 6-4, you put yourselves in a really great spot. Wyndham, they're 2-4. They got Fairport, Harding, Matthews, and North Baltimore coming up. I think they're on the outside looking in. Yeah, they're 21 spot. Potential is there that they can bump up a little bit. There's some openings pretty deep up into this conference, as from 9 down to the bottom, there's one team with a winning record, and that's Lisbon. Plenty of spots to open up. Wyndham, if they take these last 3 games, they're in. They can be in at 6-4. If you can make a winning record in these last 3 weeks, you're going to be in the postseason.
Yeah, winning records get you in too. So if they can do it, we'll see. I mean, I definitely root for it, but yeah, I just said it with some other games today, but you just got to get in.
It is, and it's going to be a real fun week this week. Thursday and Friday, we're going to go into our high school football extravaganza mode as we break down all the games for this weekend. And I'm sure we'll probably spend 20 minutes talking about Valley Christian and Southern again, because that's the game of the week, baby. Nothing, I don't think anything's topping that this week, and it's going to be something exciting. And guess who's on the call? This guy. So make sure that is going to be something special. Also, tonight we got volleyball games going on the network. Liberty and Campbell Memorial doing a Volley for the Cure event to help support breast cancer awareness. So if you are in the area and you want to see some volleyball, make your way on down. All profits, or I believe all sales from the game tonight, are going towards funding to put an end to breast cancer. So a really great cause out there. Everyone from both schools has really kind of dived in. I think this was a student-led push to do this. They had T-shirts made up. I'm going to be on the call tonight here on YSN. Big event. We want to pack these seats and get as much going for this. Make sure if you're going to this game, wear pink.
Yep.
But that's all I have for the show today. I'm Alec Brennan. That's Mike Wolfgang. Power Hour coming up next on your Sports Network.